So we are leaving the Unholy, and it's kind of interesting that we chose to hold on to this movie and not see this right away when it was released. It kind of was released unceremoniously, and I guess it was billed as, I thought it was just going to be kind of a cheap horror movie with a lot of cliches. And while it was rife with several cliches, bleeding from the eyes of religious figures, and I mean, hence the title, Unholy, starts in 1845 with what we would assume to be some sort of a witch burning or something. Character getting a mask, nailed onto their face, and then burned and hung. As far as horror movies go, great start to create some at a tree, great start. And then we got this journalist in present day. He's a skeptic, goes to hunt skeptical things. He reminded me a lot of something Jeff Goldblum would play, like in Jurassic Park, where he even had Jeff Goldblum's mannerisms down, almost like you could see that Jeff Goldblum. And I think the priest of the deaf girl was the guy in the second Die Hard movie that was the villain. I'd have to look that up to be sure. I could be wrong on that. Seemed like he was. So nice to see him again, if indeed it's the same guy. Thought the acting was overall pretty decent. The actual movie itself was entertaining, I thought. Surprisingly so. Kind of thought it was going to be a throwaway horror movie. So for me, I was entertained throughout most of the movie. Didn't go, oh man, this was a snore fest, or there was only one or two jump scares in there, so they didn't overdo the jump scare thing. It really wasn't scary. It was just more of kind of like a mystery horror, I would say, or mystery, spooky, kind of eerie mystery thing. So if you're going on the basis of scared, it didn't really succeed on that. I've seen much scarier. Amityville Horror scared me more. Obviously, The Shining. I can go on and on with movies that are more scary. Exorcist, many horror movies more scarier than that. So I think I'm more of a mystery. So I don't know. Is that kind of how you felt about it, mystery wise? It wasn't really a horror film. It was more like a mystery, kind of an eerie mystery with horrific elements.
It wasn't really horror, no.
No, it didn't seem really.
It
wasn't scary.
It wasn't movie per se either, but
you didn't like it?
Not really.
I mean, compared to In This Earth, which was the last thing, at least that was a coherent story.
Okay.
You could follow that.
Yeah, it was better than that.
So, I'm going to say that I'm going to give it 2.5 stars, which is okay. I didn't particularly care for the ending. I thought there were parts of it that were predictable, and it was rife with cliches. It really was. I mean, what you would consider to be horror cliche involving a church or religion and Satan and God and all that was all in this in some way or another. Not as overt as in some, but it even ended with a passage from the Bible. So it's I think that weakened it for me. That it was too familiar to the tropes of that type of story. However, I was entertained through most of it, even though I kind of saw a lot of it coming. So it's just okay for me. Just 2.5 stars. Sounds like you're gonna go for worse than that. But what are you thinking?
Between a 1.5 and a 2.
All right. So which way are you leaning? 1.5 or 2?
More towards 1.5.
You just didn't care for it that much? Because 1.5 is bad. 2 is... Well, 1.5 is bad. I'm going to say 2 is... Is 1.5 terrible? 2 is... I don't know. I forget our own ratings, it seems like, what we labeled each one.
1.5.
You're just going with bad. I think 1.5 was bad. Maybe 1 is terrible. And then half a star is unwatchable.
It did put me to sleep.
I saw your eyes were open.
I was waiting for it to be over.
You know, again, we've talked about this many, many times in our reviews, that movies go on too much, too long. Could it have been better if it snipped out 15 or 20 minutes? Absolutely. It just seems like the guys that do these movies, it's like somebody tells them it has to be almost 2 hours or more than 2 hours to be a good movie. Look at all the good movies. They're over 2 hours or about 2 hours. So they're pushing almost the length artificially. Whereas an hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes would have tightened this up so much. It was, I think, an hour and 37, hour and 39 minutes, something like that of runtime. But that includes the credits. So, again, if they'd taken 15 minutes off of that, it's a little short for a full-length movie, but by today's standards. But I think it would have made it stronger for me. But anyway, long story short, Kara's going with 1.5 stars. I'm sticking with 2.5, so we're about a star apart on this. We've certainly seen worse movies this year than that. I don't know if that's a compliment, but if you kind of like a mystery, a dark mystery, if you will, that's where this fits for me. Wasn't scary at all. If you're rating it on a scare, I'm closer to Kara's rating for scares and chills and all. Wasn't scary at all, really, to me. I mean, the jump scare got me, but only because, you know, it's loud. It just shocks you. That isn't scary. That's being surprised, you know, by something that happens that you're not seeing coming. That isn't scary. That's just cheap to me. But they only did that a couple times. They didn't overdo it. Some of them, they overdo that to death. It's just not even, and it wasn't one of those where the horror is humor and they try to go for make it funny. Wasn't there. So, but as far as religious tropes go in horror movies, or what would be billed as a horror movie, it had it in spades. Really, it did. It was everywhere you could see horror stuff and Satan stuff that you've seen before in some other much better movie than this. So 2.5 stars for me. Movie reviews by us.com. Kara's got it going with 1.5. We're a bit apart on this one, but I think we're feeling better about this one. Still not recommended. Takes 4 out of 5 stars to be recommended. And so far this year, of the 20th movie, because it's the 20th we've seen in theaters, only one has made the grade for that. I'm pretty sure. I'd have to go back and look over it. I believe we've only had one 4-star movie this year. So, not a stellar record for cinema so far. However, Mortal Kombat coming up this weekend. That Japanese one, the Inmugen, the train one that did so well over in Japan. #1 best, I think, of all time. That's coming up later. So, hope you'll subscribe to our channel. Support us, independent content producers that we are. We just left the movie review. That's what we do here. 20th of 2021. Hopefully many, many more to come. Thank you for watching.